Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Jaya Jagannath Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra Jagannath Jaya Jagannath Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Hare Krishna, liebe Gäste, ein herzliches Willkommen zu unserem Krishna-Tempel in Zürich. Hare Krishna, dear guests, dear devotees, a warm welcome to our Krishna-Temple in Zurich. Gibt es jemanden, der kein Englisch versteht? So, alle verstehen Englisch? Okay, dann ist gut. So, today the program will be as follows. We will have a lecture till 5 o'clock, followed by the Sunday feast, food, prasadam we call. After that, at 6:15, there will be a guided mantra meditation where you can come and learn to meditate on beats. At 7 o'clock, there will be a temple ceremony, and at 8 o'clock till 9:30, there will be more mantra singing in the form, the music which we just had now. And today, for the lecture, we have a special guest here, His Grace Jagannath Priya Prabhu. Please welcome him with a big Haribol. He is from India. He's currently living in Mumbai, and he has been practicing the Krishna consciousness for over 25 years, and he has a degree. He has a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering and a dual master's in Sanskrit and yoga, and therefore also he's a very scholar person. He can very nicely explain the Vedic literatures such as Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, all the Puranas, and especially his style of teaching is a way of a practical application and tailored to a specific individual application, how we can apply all this wisdom from the Vedic knowledge in our daily life. And we are very happy that Prabhu has come here to Switzerland again, and we're very happy to hear it from you for this hour. Hare Krishna.
It's fine, I'll use Kappa. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana
Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana
Yamuna Tira Vanachari
Yamuna Tira Vanachari
Yamuna Tira Vanachari
Yamuna Tira Vanachari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Govinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we are reading from the second canto, chapter 3, text 17. Ayurharati vai pumsam udyanashtam chayannasau tasyarthe yatakshano nita uttama shloka vartaya. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Both by rising and by setting, the sun decreases the duration of life of everyone, except one who utilizes the time by discussing the topics of the all-good personality of Godhead. Purport. This verse indirectly confirms the greater importance of utilizing the human form of life to realize our lost relationship with the Supreme Lord by the acceleration of devotional service. Time and tide wait for no man, so the time indicated by sunrise and sunset will be uselessly wasted if such a time is not properly utilized for realizing identification of spiritual values. Even a fraction of the duration of life wasted cannot be compensated by any amount of gold. Human life is simply awarded to a living entity so that he can realize his spiritual identity and his permanent source of happiness. A living being, especially the human being, is seeking happiness because happiness is the natural situation of the living entity. But he is vainly seeking happiness in all the material atmosphere. A living being is constitutionally a spiritual spark of the complete whole, and his happiness can be perfectly perceived in spiritual activities. The Lord is the complete spirit whole, and his name, form, quality, pastimes, entourage, and personality are all identical with him. Once a person comes into contact with any of the above mentioned energies of the Lord, through the proper channel of devotional service, the door to perfection is immediately opened. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord has explained such contact in the following words. Endeavors in devotional service are never baffled, nor is there a failure. A slight beginning of such activities is sufficient even to deliver a person from the great ocean of material fears. As a highly potent drug injected intravenously acts at once on the whole body, the transcendental topics of the Lord injected through the ear of the pure devotee of the Lord can act very efficiently. Oral realization of the transcendental messages implies total realization. Just as fructification of one part of a tree implies fructification of all other parts. This realization for a moment in the association of pure devotees like Shukdev Goswami prepares one's complete life for eternity. And thus the sun fails to rob the pure devotee of his duration of life, in as much as he is constantly busy in the devotional service of the Lord, purifying his existence. Death is a symptom of material infection of the eternal living being. Only due to the material infection is the living entity subjected to the law of birth, death, old age and disease. The materialistic way of pious activities like charity is recommended in the Smriti Shastra as quoted by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Money given in charity to a suitable person is guaranteed bank balance in the next life. Such charity is recommended to be given to a Brahmana. If the money is given in charity to a non-Brahmana without Brahminical qualification, the money is returned in the next life in the same proportion. If it is given in charity to a half-educated Brahmana, even then the money is returned double. If the money is given in charity to the learned and fully qualified Brahmana, the money is returned 100 and 1,000 times. And if the money is given to Veda Paraga, one who has factually realized the path of Vedas, it is returned by unlimited multiplication. The ultimate end of Vedic knowledge is realization of the personality of Godhead Lord Krishna as stated in the Bhagavad Gita. Vedescha sarver ahameva vedyaha. There is a guarantee of money is being returned even if given in charity regardless of the proportion. Similarly, a moment passed in the association of the pure devotee by hearing and chanting the transcendental messages of the Lord is a perfect guarantee for eternal life, for returning home back to Godhead. Madhama gatva punarjanma na vidyate. In other words, a devotee of the Lord is guaranteed eternal life. A devotee's old age or disease in the present life is but an impetus to such guaranteed eternal life. Hare Krishna. Thank you for having me here this evening. I am grateful for all the participants this evening. And also happy to see some familiar faces. So this discussion of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a beautiful literature which discusses about the activities of the Lord done by devotees themselves. In this book, Lord speaks the least, and it is devotees who speak about the Lord. This verse speaks about the importance of the human form of life and the very special ability which is given in this particular species. The scriptures mention Ahara nidra bhaya maithunam cha tasamanyam etat pashubhi naranam dharmo hi tesham adhiko vishesho dharmena hina pashubhi narana. As far as the conditions of eating, sleeping and mating and defending are concerned, these things are available to all the species of life. And in fact, even when we talk about the technologies which exist all over the planet, those specific technologies are present naturally in many species by their natural abilities. Like say walking on the walls, flying in the air, swimming in water, and so on. So in human form of life, you may get an Olympic medal of being the best swimmer. I have no offenses against swimming. But someone who values his life based on being a great swimmer or a great football player or a great skydiver or all those things, it's a defeat of human life itself, because these things are done by different species in a better way, without threat to their lives, without threat to their existence, without threat to somebody else's existence. We haven't heard of a bird crashing onto a person and that person dying, or a bird crashing on some other bird, right? Why? Because flying is natural to them. So as far as all these things are concerned, other species have better technologies than us, except one specific thing which human beings have, which no other species has, which is about inquiring into the greater truths of life. Even if you are not a philosopher, even if you have never studied any kind of literature of the world, you have never been to any church or mosque or anything, at a certain age in life, your heart and your mind will start throwing questions. Such questions which are never asked by any other species. You will start inquiring about the truths of life. Why? Why are things the way they are? Never a dog thinks about the other dog. Why doesn't he know how to behave properly? That never happens. It's only human being who tries to bring order to his life and order to somebody else's life, and so on. Why? Because this is what is called as dharmo hi tesham adhiko vishesho. Adhika means extra, vishesh means speciality. So the extra speciality of, there is something extra or some speciality in every single species. So what is that speciality of human beings? It is to inquire to the greater truths of life. Most of the modern civilization, all these values which we hear today about equality, equity means the man and woman, they should have the equal rights and so on. They have equal stake in the formation of a state and so on. Justice, morality, all these things which are existing today in this world, largely in the social structures today, is what has been propounded by the ancient Greek philosophers. So you must have heard about Socrates, Plato and Aristotle. Do they teach here in the schools? Is it part of the syllabus somewhere? Okay. What do they teach about them? Like in India, there is nothing taught about them, so I'm just asking.
More in higher school than new school?
So it's not part of any, no, not a chapter, nothing on them?
Maybe someone takes specific subject, but not generally.
Not in general, there's no idea. Okay. Then in India, there is some idea who is Socrates and Plato and Aristotle. Anyways, so about 2500 years ago, that was the time when Socrates used to be there. So he was one of the first persons in the Western worlds who started questioning about the concept of truth itself. Because those days, there was an idea by the aristocratic society, the rich people, of how human beings should be behaving. And they had conceived of an idea of religion which suits to their power, their ruling. Socrates started questioning all of that. So they had created idea of charity, nobility and so on. They came up with ideas that what pleases God, do these things, God is happy. And so it was a very nice system which was running according to the rich people those days. And they had created a system that if mankind does not do these many things, then gods will become angry. And if gods become angry, they'll punish you. So Socrates came about an idea of truth, revolting against this basic thought. He said, if there is God, he must be benevolent, he must be kind. Now, when this idea was projected, the rich people did not like it because they thought that this idea is challenging their notion of governance. Because if mankind would start believing that God is very kind and benevolent, then it would also mean that I do not need to be an excellent person. Even if I am a little bit ordinary, His benevolence will benefit me. And then people were not afraid of God anymore. In fact, the younger people joined him in those talks. And that created a lot of disruption, for which most of you, if you know a little bit about Socrates, you would know that he was then caught, jailed, and executed for this thing. Even during his trial, which is a very famous discussion which happens, someday if there is a series developed on Netflix or Amazon Prime on the trial of Socrates, I recommend all of you to see it. Nobody has done it so far. I'm also waiting for some director to make, because that would be the most fascinating discussion in the inquiry about the truth. He started questioning, what is the purpose of life? So see, when we are reading these discussions in the Bhagavatam, some of you may feel that you have come to a temple and that's why these discussions are happening in a Hindu temple. No. These are not the kind of discussions which happen in a Hindu temple. If you are a human being, you are naturally going to ask these questions sooner or later in your own languages, in different manners. It will come. For some, these questions come in a developed manner. For some, this query is not developed properly. That's the only difference. So Socrates started raising questions in this regard, that what is human life specifically meant for? Is it all about just enhancing the pleasures of the body? In fact, he reached to the point of soul. That is very interesting and fascinating. Now, the concept of soul was not developed in the society very explicitly. In the Vedic literatures, you do hear these concepts, you do hear about God and so many other things very elaborately, but specifically in the European society, this thing was not developed. So it was a very novel idea that there is something beyond the body. He brought about this concept called reason. Being a human being, we have to reason, we have to question. Even while on trial with his jurors and the judges, he in fact was arguing with those lawyers who were trying to frame arguments against him, that why he should be executed. Basically, the charge was that he has revolted against the state, and therefore the punishment during that time was death penalty. So the punishment was that you give poison. So Socrates at that time, even to his own jurors, he said that you are trying to tell me to stop examining my own life and the life of the civilization around us. My suggestion to all of you is that an unexamined life is not worth living. I hope you all understand English very well. What a beautiful line. An unexamined life is not worth living. Having said that, it was too much for them to handle this statement. And he went to that extent that if it is about, if you are concerned for the welfare of the soul, you should be ready to pay any price to pay the price of the comforts of the body, the luxuries of the life, of physical life. Everything you can pay any price as long as you are getting closer to the concept of soul. These are not words of the Bhagavatam. They are not religious words. They are words of a revolutionary on the planet who had no exposure to the literature. But when you see that whenever somebody tries to investigate in the truths of life, the deeper aspects of our existence, which Socrates was trying to say, you will see that the queries come more or less to the level of discussion which comes in the Bhagavatam. His disciple Plato took this idea forward ahead. So Socrates came up with an idea that we should have a society which is governed by the will of people, but guided will of people, because you cannot have fools coming together and deciding how the society should run. That's not the idea. So Plato developed that idea and brought this modern form of democracy. And not exactly democracy, but Socrates came up with the idea of democracy, and Plato shaped it, saying that the society should be run by philosopher kings. So the most ideal society would be when the society is run by philosophers. But because philosophers are philosophers, they cannot govern, and therefore you need to have kings who understand philosophy. And in case you do not have those kings, then you need specially trained people. And if you still don't have them, then you have the worst form of governance, which was called as a deviant governance. That is the term which came. And that was what was called as democracy, which we have today. So I'm not against democracy per se, but I am trying to help you to understand, just people coming together and conceiving an idea does not make a civilization. You can make some sense that, okay, we have a limited resource of water, now let us all come together and decide how to use this water. That's fine. But we cannot just come together and decide how life itself runs. You need people with higher dimensions, higher sense of life. And that is what Plato and Aristotle also came up with this idea. Aristotle was follower of Socrates. Now Aristotle had an interesting follower. He became one of the great kings, King Alexander. You heard about him? So this story which I am going to say is about Alexander, who is also given the title the Great. So you always see Alexander the Great. Now who gave him that title? Do you know? When you say Sir David something something, so somebody else gives you the title, right? So who gave the title Alexander the Great? Yes, he himself. So those days, even early days, the kings, when they would go for conquest, they would always have a historian or a writer with them. And they would write histories that would suit their own creation. Like after 100 years, I want people to know me this way. So the writer would write like that. So Alexander had come to India in the year 326. So, and about 500 years before, or 800 years before was 800 years before was Socrates. Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, and then Alexander. So interesting part is, he had learned from Aristotle that in India you will find people who are not only wise in material sciences, but the speciality of this land is there are people who understand metaphysical knowledge. So Aristotle had told Alexander that if you ever travel there, in your conquest, because you are a king, you are going to bring special gems and stones, and they collect all these kind of artifacts. Every king wants to collect anything which is rare and make it part of his kingdom. So Aristotle told, if you find some sages in India, make sure you bring one or two in your kingdom, because that will make your life successful. So that is the true gem you could get. That is the rarity. So those days, because there was no social media, obviously nobody knew anything. You had to personally go and experience things. So when Alexander reached a place called Takshashila, he conquered those days that Takshashila University was the #1 university of the world. So many things were being discussed. All these fundamental sciences which you talk about space today, it was all written down there. Thousands and thousands of years ago. So he went there and conquered. When he reached there, he came to know about one Swami called Dandaswami. Now in the Greek accounts, Alexander himself has written this story of in the Greek way. So he does not call it as Dandaswami, they called him Dandamis. So when he reached there and came to know, so he asked his follower, rather a historian, he was a writer, he would write whoever Alexander was conquering and whatever discussions he had. Alexander also loved to meet scholars and writers and so many other places everywhere. So he sent his writer or historian, Onesicritus, to go and meet this Dandamis. And he told him that please invite this sage to become the part of the kingdom of Greece. If he does so, I will reward him with gold equivalent to his weight. So Onesicritus, he found out this location of Dandaswami and went there in the forest. And there this person was a very lean person, a typical sage whom we read in the books those days, living in the mountainsides, surviving on very frugal, some jungle leaves and fruits and water which just flows. And he was very skinny. So at that time, he was lying on a bed of leaves, taking early morning sunshine on his body. So Onesicritus comes and tells that Alexander, the most powerful son of the god Zeus, has invited you to be part of his kingdom, and he will reward you in gold equivalent to your weight if you join him. Or if you don't join him, he will cut your head. Can you imagine what kind of people would be? Somebody says, I am willing to give you all the gold if you come to me, or else I'll kill you. What kind of invitation that would be? So he just looked at him and he laughed and said, just get lost. Tell your king, Alexander, that if he is the son of Zeus, so am I. As far as he's concerned to give me something, I need nothing. It is he who needs something. Now Dandaswami had known about Alexander because he was conquering here and there. So he said, it is Alexander who needs something. He's traveling all over the earth. He's traveling on the land and in the waters. He's conquering people and still he hasn't got enough. So you please give him something. Tell him I need nothing. Get lost. Now this message was quite harsh for Onesicritus. He went and told Alexander what had happened. So Alexander got surprised that this was the first time in his life that an apparently useless person who has nothing, he shamed him and insulted him so bad. So he went and he decided, I am going to come and I want to meet this person personally. So when he came there, the next day, early morning, he reached there. So it is explained that this sage was meditating again in the early morning sun, enjoying the sunrise falling on his body. And suddenly Alexander comes and blocks the sunshine on his body. So this Swami, without even opening his eyes, He just says, "Who is this useless person?" So Alexander speaks. "Don't you know who I am?" So the sage then opens his eyes and he looks straight in the eyes of Alexander and says, "Do you know who you are?" Imagine this question. A person who is conquering the earth, he goes with that pride. How is it that you don't know me? And this person just looks at him and says, "Do you know who you are?" The moment Alexander hears this, that one question of the sage, which was not exactly a question, it was a message that you yourself don't know who you are. You think you are Alexander, but are you sure? Alexander had a big pause. He started thinking. And suddenly his tone changed. Earlier he had almost taken out his sword. He approached as a king. Now he's telling, "Actually, I am Alexander who has been conquering the earth. Yesterday my man had come to meet you." He said, "I know. But do you know who you are? If, my dear Alexander, if life is simply all about you being the king, then why are you here? Am I someone who is worthy to be conquered? What are you going to get?" So after that whole discussion, where Alexander tries to say that I am a great person, I have conquered, and this sage says there is no value to your conquering. There was a dead skin of an animal lying nearby. So this Danda Swami says, "Okay, forget giving me gold." So there was this dead animal skin. You know, when animal skin starts drying off, it rolls naturally. He says, "Take this skin and make it straight. Then I'll do whatever you tell." So Alexander starts making the skin straight. So when he would make the skin straight on one side, the other side would roll. And as he kept straightening the other side, the previous side would again roll back. So Danda Swami says, this is the nature of your conquest. You will conquer one place, and as soon as you move, the conquest will again revert back to its original position. Means you will lose. And that's what essentially happened in the whole journey of Alexander. That he kept conquering and losing. And this discussion with Danda Swami became one of the most important discussions of his life, which towards the end of his own life, Alexander made 3 wishes. That when I die, my body should be taken open in the coffin with my hands and legs outside, for everyone to see that even though I conquered the world, I am going empty-handed. There is nothing that I can carry. And he said, my palanquin must be carried with all the jewels and the rarest of the materials which I have, for people to see that these things are useless. And the third desire he had made was, my palanquin, that coffin should have a procession led by doctors. Do you know why?
See that the doctors are useless.
To show that no matter how much prevention and precautions you take from the best of the physicians, nothing can stop death. This one single discussion with Danda Swami, which happened in the year 326, about 20 or 30 years later, Alexander died. That became the reference point of his life. So here the discussion, very beautifully it is coming in the Bhagavatam we read. One who utilizes the time by discussing the topics of all good personality of Godhead. So for such a person, death does not appear to be something which stops the progress of life as such. We do not need lots and lots of information in life. We do not need to read hundreds and thousands of books of literature or know so many mantras and philosophies of the world. One genuine, honest, simple, soul-searching discussion, if that happens in our life, that is enough to shape our entire life and make our journey so glorious that our life moves from just simple, ordinary experiences of life to greater and greater experiences. There is so much to life which can be experienced only in the human form. The whole concept. See, so many people take drugs. Or we have heard since Prabhupada times, people used to take LSD and so on. Why do no other species ever thinks that we want to have such kind of pleasures? How many of you have dogs as pets? Anyone here? Okay, in United States everyone has dogs. So if you give your pets some liquor, they don't drink. Animals do not naturally do anything which is not suited specifically to their body. Why does the human being want to drink or take drugs? It's not for the body, it's for the mind. Because a human form recognizes that there are levels of pleasure which are beyond the body. Just at the level of mind and intelligence you can derive a lot of pleasure. For example, some of you may be deriving some sense of pleasure by just discussing. We are not actually feeding our body right now. But whatever we are discussing, or when you sit for the mantra chants, you get some pleasure. So those are pleasures derived by the mind and intelligence, not specifically by the body. So in the human form of life, you are already being given a hint. What is that hint? That there are levels of pleasure beyond the senses, beyond just the body. There are higher things. The nature of the senses is, the senses can only derive pleasure which come from outside. So the eyes will feel pleasure only when they see something from outside. The eyes are not designed to see within. You cannot close your eyes and somebody says, "What are you doing?" You say, "I'm looking inside, what's the problem?" That's not possible. Eyes are designed to go out. Ears are designed to take noises and message from outside, not hear the sounds within the body. The tongue is designed to taste things coming from outside, not within the body. You cannot taste yourself inside. It's not possible. So all the senses, like the sense of touch, when you touch from outside, from inside you do not directly feel. How many of you feel blood flowing? Then you'll be feeling like a river or an ocean. You don't feel like that because the senses are designed, they are outgoing. You have this incoming and outgoing. When you access internet, there is something called outgoing and incoming, right? Or your phones, incoming and outgoing connections. The senses are always outgoing. Every single species of life only derives pleasures which are coming from outside. It is only human being who has some extra sensory ability to understand that there are pleasures inside. Even if you don't take anything from outside, there are things from inside that you can get. You don't need to be a great wise sage or philosopher to understand these things. And this is the only reason why, having this natural ability, these kind of discussions are coming. The Bhagavad Gita also discusses this aspect. The beginning of the Gita comes from this discussion. That you are not this body. I find this concept so exciting. That you are not this body. Who you are is, you can discover it in many different ways. But at least one thing is as certain, that you are simply not this body, because if you were the body, then you would not be thinking in such manners. So the nature of human form is that there are a lot of mystical communications which happen in everyone's life, even if you are a demoniac person. Even if somebody is grossly sinful, you will get an opportunity. Everyone gets an opportunity. Those who know how to ask the right questions, meet the right people and make the right queries and move, they make their life successful. And those who just simply ignore these messages coming, that, oh, this is, when you become 40 or 45, you have these kind of questions. Don't bother yourself. Just go Friday night, come to my place, chill out. It'll all be fine. What you're doing is you're killing these voices. Do not do that. When nature is coming with a gift of a query, grab it, use it, and develop on it. That's how you make your life perfect. Thank you all very much. If anyone has any questions or comments, you can please. Yes, Prabhu.
Prabhu, what was the reason that you took especially this verse from the Bhagavatam?
So as soon as I came, I just took this and I just opened some text and I saw 2 or 3 texts and I thought this was good. So honestly, I didn't think that which is the verse I should take. But I had this idea to connect something about this modern Greek concept of development of thought, of body and soul. And I found this verse connecting to it. Hare Krishna. Yes.
How we can train to ask the right questions, which is favorable for our spiritual life.
So in the 10th canto, when Parikshit is asking questions to Shukdev Goswami is very happy. Even in the beginning of the 1st canto, the sages ask questions to Suta Goswami, and Suta Goswami starts glorifying the nature of questions itself. He says, because your questions are not driven by some selfish interest, because your questions are sincerely inquiring into the greater truths of life, and therefore even though they are your own ordinary questions, these questions will benefit everyone in general. So as long as we are not driven by ulterior motives to exploit, to manipulate something, if our questions are sincere and genuine for our own welfare, not in a selfish sense, that I want to extract something from somewhere, so let me, not like that, genuinely, then they are very good questions. Even if you have those questions, and you may not have a person who could exactly answer those questions, but if you have that sincere burning query in your heart, the nature of this universe is such that it will arrange things in a way that you will come across people or books or subjects which will speak about that. Even a foolish person on the street will give you some few cents of wisdom. So it's extremely important to keep raising questions, and keep raising questions with honesty and sincerity, not with the sense of denial. So one must take responsibility for oneself, for one's betterment. As long as a person is living in such a manner that I wanted to do so many good things, but this person was a problem, that person was a problem, that situation was a problem, and so on. So your query is already contaminated. The query must be like this. That this is what I am, this is who I am. Because of many situations, good, bad, ugly, whatever happened. But I want to know what can I do for moving ahead. When the query is such, the questions are answered very well. And the answers are also understood very well. See? Yes?
So we know we have to strive for the higher pleasures, especially in the human form of life. But again, we are selling us for this bodily pleasure, and how we can overcome that we searching more and more for the higher taste.
Yeah, so even when we are trying to understand things in spiritual matters, we need to understand that not in a ritualistic sense. So one must give enough time for one's own development also. If one does not do that, then what will happen is, let's say that you read some books or we read this discussion and we feel that, oh, now I do not want to get entangled, or I do not want to be limited only by bodily pleasures. So I start following this process in a very ritualistic manner and try to artificially impose and do things. So that doesn't really work. If one wants to have a higher pleasure in life, the easiest way to do is look within oneself and find out what is one aspect of our life which needs serious improvement. So we all have some weakness, no matter who we are. We all have some serious weaknesses where we know that if this thing comes, I lose myself. So if we know that, take that particular weakness, examine it as if you are examining it under a microscope. You become the scientist and put yourself under that microscope and start working on that one single thing. Let's say it's about getting angry, or let's say it's about feeling lusty, or let's say it's feeling about greedy or envious, or so many other things, or feeling insecure, and so on. Take that one aspect, start working on it. Why do I feel like this? And when I feel like this, I start behaving like this. And because of this behavior, it leads to these problems, and so on. So take just one problem. We do not need to focus on hundreds and thousands of things and, let's say, chanting more number of rounds and doing more kirtan and doing more service. We don't need to do voluming. We don't need to bring solution through the volume. We all have blocks in our life, and those blocks are the blocks which block the greater experiences, the greater joys. Those blocks are unique for all of us because we all have unique weaknesses. So just take your weakness and start working on it. Like a woodpecker. Have you seen a woodpecker? At least on television. Tuck, 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 tuck. And it keeps hitting so hard till the wood loses its identity. So we don't need to target our whole existence as such. Just take that one thing. Work on it for 3 months, 4 months, 6 months. When that little obstacle is gone, what will happen is you will get a sense of pleasure, satisfaction and confidence that you can fight your own weaknesses. That's it. Once you get that faith that you can fight your own limitations, your game is over. You are a hero of your battle in your own battleground. All the experiences start flowing. We just need to break that obstacle. So work on that simple thing. That's it. And once that is done, work on some other thing. So this work is slow, steady, gradual and perfect. If it is slow, steady and gradual, the result will be perfect. It will be accomplished. I hope it helps. Yes, ma'am.
Today, while coming by train, one young lady, she asked, is everything arranged by providence, or do we have free will? So I would like to ask this question to you. I'm wondering how you answer such a question.
So what did you answer there?
I said both free will
Mm-hmm.
and I would like to hear from you how you answer.
Yeah, everything, your answer was correct, it's both. In a way, everything is part of providence, for sure. But there is an element of free will which is given to us. And that free will is infinitesimal. It's very little. If that free will would not be there, then the Lord would not have given us that much intelligence even to question in the first place. No other species of, no animalistic species have these kind of questions, right? What to do? What will happen after 300 years? What will happen with our dog civilization? There is so much crossbreed going. Where will my original German Shepherd remain? The dogs never have these kind of questions. It's only human beings who have, right? We have this, the proof that we have free will is that we have a natural question to life and creation itself. If we would not have any free will at all, we would not have a query or question in itself. That's one immediate logical proof that we have free will, that we can even deny God's existence. That's a free will. See, like those of you who have been parents, you must have observed your children when they were very young. Have you been a parent? Great. So you will understand this example. When children are young, you can see their natures very clearly. Children don't hide their emotions. They are just so expressive, right? A child is a theater of emotions. Only when we grow, we learn to hide emotions, considering the society and so on. But children don't do that. So when they grow at a certain age, sometimes you as a mother can clearly tell the child, you know what, if you do these things, you will not like it, you will make this mistake. You can say that very surely because you know the child so well. That does not mean that because you said so, the child committed some mistake. No. You may say, I already knew this, I had told you 10 times. If the child say, oh, so was it part of providence, you already knew that I will commit mistake? No. I know that you will commit this mistake because I know you well. Not that I have forced you to commit a mistake. Similarly, when providence sets everything in order, that order is not set in a manner that we will commit mistakes. But obviously, because someone knows us better than ourselves, so therefore they can predict many things. I know after these years you are going to do this. When you become 10 years of age, you are going to do this. When you become 20 years, you will do this. So in the astrological science, we have a sense of prediction which is almost 99.9% true for most aspects, because that free will is there. So there you can breach. Now most people, they don't know how to access that free will properly. So the whole process of meditation and sadhana is nothing but coming to the levels of accessing our own abilities properly. Otherwise, most of the times we are victim of our mind and intellect. which is not even our own. It is designed by the corporations and the society around us. We are just randomly doing things, just not even knowing that it's not even truly our desire. So there is free will, which is very less. But one cannot say that because everything is part of providence, oh, anyways everything is providence, so I can do. So how does providence never bring you to scriptures? Why does providence always make you do things which are against the very existence of life? In general, the society is not designed to ask about God, right? So therefore, people use these arguments sometimes to escape the sense of responsibility of their own self. So the very question, the very fact that this person asked this question means that there is free will. Otherwise this question would not have come in the first place. For somebody whose life is moving like a robot or like an animal, the queries don't come. The query will only be about food, clothing, shelter, eating, sleeping, mating, defending. Only in that. No the other grade of query. So that means there is free will. Very less. So I'll give you one more instance. In the Bhagavad Gita and also in the Mahabharata, when Krishna himself, who is talking to the devotees, at many places he says, I know what you have been in your past lives, and I also know what you are going to be in your future lives. I know everything about the past, present and the future. What you know is only the present, and that too only what you remember. And that too also only how you have understood it. Not exactly how things are. We all have our own perspectives of life, right? So Krishna therefore says this. So listen to me, understand what I am trying to say, and then apply your intelligence. That is the whole message of Bhagavad Gita, right? Yathechasi tatha kuru. He says that now I have explained you the whole science, now you do as you desire. That means I have some free will, right? That way. Yes.
Can we say that the providence creates a situation, and what we do with the situation